Following is an open discussion about higher truths, about finding a new kind of life, a new way of responding to daily events. There are three of us present in the room. To those of you listening to the tape, please do listen carefully and try to understand some of these things which may not be understandable at first. I'm going to ask both of you the same question, and I'd like you to discuss it in your own way. And I'll ask Sally first. What is the meaning of attention, of having right attention in our inner work? What does attention mean? How can we use attention to grow faster, to understand life better?
Excuse me. Attention is bringing all your thoughts together, putting your thought on one thing, putting your attention on one thing, so that you're not distracted. In our normal daily life, we're distracted by everything. We have to try and, it's like making an aim to be attentive to whatever we're doing. And this helps us to see things more clearly.
What is the purpose of seeing anything more clearly?
Well, it's to see how we actually are and not as we imagine we are. Because we live in a life of dreams, actually. And if we are attentive and observe ourselves, we'll see how we actually are and not as we imagine we are. So to be attentive is to bring all your energy together on whatever you're doing at the moment.
What if I see something that's not pleasant in myself? While I'm being attentive, I see something I don't want to see. What's the value in that?
Oh, this is very valuable because this is what you're working towards. You want to see yourself as you really are. So you have to see all your negativities. And this is very valuable if you'll stay with it and be attentive and watch it. This is the purpose of changing yourself. This is how you change yourself, by seeing.
Wouldn't all this attention to myself, to looking at myself, wouldn't that make me self-centered? And it seems to me that we're trying to not be self-centered. All this thinking about myself, I don't understand.
No, this is the only healthy thing in the world, is to change what we see in ourselves. And if we're negative and see it, we have to stay with it. It's not unhealthy, it's not egotistical. It's the healthiest thing there is. Because we want to change. If you're angry and see that you're angry, then it can be changed. It will change. But if you go on being angry and you think you have an image of being not an angry person and never see it, you'll always be angry.
You're saying we're giving attention in order to understand our state rather than simply to be the center of my own attention. That's what you're saying?
Right.
Juan, would you also do the same thing? Discuss attention, its value, how it can profit us.
Attention, I must be observant myself at all times of my feelings, my thoughts that goes through my mind. As I'm sitting here listening to Sally speak, I found out, or I became aware, that my mind was wandering around of what to say next, since my turn will be coming up next. Instead of concentrating my whole attention of what she is saying, I wasn't listening to her with full attention. I say maybe 50%, and the other 50% was wondering what was I going to say when my turn came to explain attention.
Yes.
So by observing myself of everything that's going through me and really see that when I talk to somebody or when somebody talks to me, I am not paying attention the way I'm supposed to. If I can observe this in myself, then this becomes very valuable to me. Next time, I will concentrate more in understanding that other person, what he's trying to say to me. I never do that. Even when my boss comes around and tells me to do something or trying to explain to me something, I don't really see that person. My mind might be back home worrying about what my financial situation or so forth, so forth. So this is the way we always hear other persons and see other persons. We do not concentrate our whole attention on them. Now, if I see something that is painful in me, I do not identify with it. Maybe I don't want to see it. But I can observe it, look at it, and as Sally said, then I can see myself as I'm actually am, not as what I imagine I am.
Yes. I'm wondering if either one of you, or both of you for that matter, would discuss this fascination we have for wrong attention. Even if we're not attracted by something exciting out there, we are fascinated by something in our mind, running a mental movie through our mind, and we just love to live in this state. Even when it's painful, when it's unhappy, we think of something awful or stupid we did a few months ago or 5 minutes ago, and our attention is on this exciting, either negative or positive excitement, state of mind. What is this fascination we have with being so involved in our own mind? Why are we so fascinated by it? Why don't we just let a painful thought go when it comes up? What is this fascination we have with negative thoughts? Anything to contribute on that?
Well, this gives us our feeling of ourselves. This makes us safe and comfortable. This makes us safe and comfortable. It gives us our feeling of me.
Yes.
And we enjoy our negative emotions, running these pictures through our minds of terrible things that have happened.
In other words, we remain the center of our own world when we do this, and that's very gratifying to our vanity, to our egotism, to be the center of our own attention.
Just like you said, we don't want to let it go. It's hard to see that we like our angers also. if it's painful.
Yes.
But if I let go of this, then I wouldn't know who I am. I even like them. I keep them. Whether it's a beautiful experience or whether it's a painful experience, I just go from one to the other one,
Yes.
back and forth.
Yes. Maybe something should be explained at this point. Where do I get my sense of sense of self? Where do I get any ideas at all about who I am? I'm either a successful man or I'm a failure, I'm a good man or I'm a bad man. Any ideas at all about myself? Where do I get them? First of all, I got them through experiences over the years, through other people telling me who I am, which I accepted as being real. For example, I was told that I must be a success, and not even knowing what that word means, I tried to be a success. And to my mind, success meant to maybe have a successful career or be important. Or maybe to a woman, success consisted of getting married and having a family, all of which is mechanical thinking. But all these ideas about who I am or who I should be are on the level of thought, or on the level of thinking. In other words, I think about who I am. Now, if I didn't think about who I was, if I had no labels on myself, if I didn't give myself words such as I am successful or I am a failure, they're both the same, then I'd have no idea at all who I am. And this is what is frightening, to not have an identity, to not know who I am. Not really frightening, because fear vanishes when thought about myself vanishes. I can only be afraid when I'm thinking. All fear is on the level of thought, of thinking about it. For example, I think I may be secure today, I may have it made with my income and with my family surrounding me, with all my friends, with all my popularity, with all my youth. I have it made right now. But I'm thinking about it. And now this thought must have an opposite, because all thought operates on opposites. So now, unknown to myself, unconscious to myself, because I've never looked into it, I am afraid of losing all this. And the fact is, I will lose it. I'm not going to stay 20 or 25 or 30 years old. I'm not going to be young and attractive all my life. I may lose my best friends. I may lose my reputation. I may lose everything I have. So when I label myself as being secure, I am afraid already, but I don't see it because I only want to see one side of it. I want to see that things are going great right now, and I hope they stay this way, see? But way back in my mind, I sense that I'm playing a trick on myself. I sense that I'm living in time of saying that I have all these things now, but way back, I'm afraid of what's going to happen a year from now or 10 years from now. So what would happen if instead of thinking about who I am, I had no idea at all, which does not mean I don't live intelligently on the everyday level, because I do. I live intelligently for the first time, because I'm not trying to hold what I call my world in place. I don't have to hold my world in place because my thought has not built up a world, which is a false world, a pseudo world. If I give up trying to hold the world in place with thought, what happens? Then there's no me and the world to hold into place. I'm free. I'm greatly relieved. Now anything can happen. And things are going to happen. Things are going to change, are they not? They change every day. They happen every day. If I give up, this is important, if I give up hanging on to thought about who I am and have no label at all, what have I to fear? I have nothing to fear. Because I'm not trying to keep this masquerade going of being successful or of being a failure. Do you know that people love to be failures? Without failures, what could they complain about? If I don't label myself as a failure, how can I blame you or someone else for doing this awful thing to me that made me a failure? Blaming you gives me a sense of excitement. You understand? Hatred becomes very valuable to a person who's labeled himself a failure. So you have to give up being both a success and a failure. So there's no thought involved at all except on practical everyday living when you're a free human being. Now, all this that I've said is achieved, it is found by giving attention in the right way. Instead of giving attention as to how badly you treated me, or what you said to me 10 minutes ago that hurt my feelings, if I can simply drop this thought in favor of living right now, in this second, without carrying over that 10 minutes ago when you said something that hurt my feelings, if I live right now, then I'm free and I'm out of it. However, if I value my hurt feelings, do you see why I value it? You tell me, Juan, why I value having hurt feelings.
Well, because this gives me a false sense of excitement. If I let that go, then I wouldn't know who I am. I'm lost. I can't say, well, I'm envious, or I'm jealous, or anything. That means that I like them. I want that excitement, whether it's pleasure or painful.
Yes,
Either one.
yes. Sally, would you explain, to explain further what Juan said, would you explain the term that we have used, and it's a very good one, the term false feeling of life? What do we mean by that?
False feeling of life means that we get excitement out of things, and this makes us feel as if we have a lot of energy. For instance, say I'm angry. I'm not going to give this anger up because it gives me a tremendous excitement and it makes me feel as if I exist, as if I'm really alive. This is anything at all like that that makes me feel as if I'm alive, and negative emotions do this very much so. Being angry, being frightened, envious, they give people a tremendous energy as if they really exist.
So why do we resist giving up, say, anger? Why do we, to sort of review a little bit, why does a person refuse to give up the anger, which he could give up if he wanted to? Why does he resist it?
Because he wouldn't know who he was. This anger is the person. When a person is angry, he is the anger, and this
Right.
gives him energy. If he gives this anger up, he doesn't know who he is. That's why we refuse it.
But suppose that person doesn't know, doesn't understand. He's right in the middle of that anger. He has no possibility of looking at it. Is this what you're trying to say? He
Yes.
doesn't know that there's another way of looking at it?
Yes, I mean when we are angry, this is all that exists for the moment.
Mhm.
However, if we are working to get out of this trap, then little by little we watch our anger before we get caught, and we see that there is a difference. And then little by little we overcome it. We hate to give it up at the beginning because it makes us uncomfortable. We really don't know who we are, because this is how we've lived all our lives. And this is who we think we are, this anger that we are at the moment. Does that answer?
Yes, that's fine. Let's change the subject, keeping in mind that no matter what topic we talk about, everything is connected. Everything. So, as we work, we should be trying to make connections in our own mind. For example, connect the emotion of anger with the idea of self-observation. If I can look at myself and see myself becoming angry, various forms of anger, by the way, indignation is a form of anger, hostility, resentment. If I can observe myself getting angry and remember what we've discussed, I can begin to give it up. Because I'm beginning to recognize a false value when I see one. All my life I have valued my anger. It's very important to me. I thought that anger was necessary to my psychological survival. And I'm not going to let you take this away from me. Because I'm afraid that if I give up exactly as Juan and Sally both said, I won't know who I am anymore. And this is the fundamental fear of not having a label on myself. We're going to give up all labels and find out what happens to us when we give them up. The label of being an angry man or even a peaceful man, which is phony. Mm-hmm. We say we're peaceful because we're trying to convince ourselves of it, but the opposite is true. So connect what I'm going to, another subject I'll bring up, and either of you can now discuss it as you want. It's the idea of unconscious self-defeating behavior. Now, look out into the world for a minute and just name a few things that are self-defeating because they destroy the individual who practices them. If you want to start with a big thing like war, everybody gets hurt in war. And everybody says they're against war. There's something wrong somewhere, isn't there? Everybody will tell you that war is wrong, and yet wars continue. So there, on the international scale, there's a self-defeating behavior of war which destroys all our resources, makes people miserable, and so on. And inwardly, there is self-defeating behavior. But either one of you, just discuss the idea of self-defeating behavior, and that's a very important word to keep in mind at all times. Because, as we have said before, when I see that I am defeating myself by the behavior I indulge in all day long, it stops. Because it is impossible for a conscious person to injure himself. It is only when we are asleep, mechanical, unconscious, that we do foolish things that end up in injury. And all self-defeat, by the way, is on the level of conditioned thought. It's mechanical. This is why a person who does something to hurt himself on Wednesday, be assured that he'll do the same thing on Thursday, maybe with a little different change. For example, he'll attract to himself other people who are defeating themselves. And so here are 10 people, or 10,000 people, indulging in personal self-defeat, who are attracted to other people who are also indulging in self-defeat, because this is what they value. And they even destroy each other when they come together. Sooner or later, they're going to fight. Peace organizations that come together for the purpose of bringing peace in the world, what do they end up doing? Fighting among themselves. And they don't see the contradiction. They don't say, here we are, met together to bring peace in the world, but we're fighting among ourselves. How can people with hatred in them as individuals bring peace in the world? They don't see this, they don't face it. You discuss, please, in your own way, self-defeating behavior. Either one of you.
Well, there's lots of ways of self-defeating behavior. One of them is feeling guilty. Say you haven't been nice to someone, and later on you feel guilty about it, and then you're overly nice to the person because you feel guilty.
Yes.
This is very self-defeating. All day long, in our usual life, we both see in ourselves and in others self-defeating behavior, gossip, thinking of our past. Everything that takes you away from the actual moment is self-defeating because you're not there.
Would you discuss guilt a little bit more? This is very important because most people are loaded with guilt. It must go with all our other negativities. Hostility. If you're hostile, you have guilt. If you did something that was actually wrong in the past, you will have held over guilt from it. Guilt is very important to understand, so let's discuss that a little bit. Would you say a little bit more about guilt?
All right. With guilt, we're also putting our life into another person's hands. They have power over us because when we feel guilty, we try to please the other person or whatever it is that we feel guilty about.
Yes. Also, we can connect guilt with what we discussed earlier. Guilt really is pure vanity. Guilt is pure egotism and nothing else. There is no value in guilt at all. And knowing this, by the way, organizations, religious organizations, social organizations, knowing this, work on a person's sense of guilt to make him feel guilty. You know why they do this? Among other reasons. Since guilt is pure egotism, they know that even though you feel guilty, you will hang on to this because it gives them a sense of self, a sense of I. On television, there was a scene of a group of people, a real scene, not a fiction movie, but an actual newsreel film, of people walking down the street of a certain city, and they had big signs saying, "We are guilty of certain thing." I don't know what it was all about, but this is a bunch of egotists going around saying they're guilty. Who was on camera when they did that? Who was the center of attention when they did that? This is how, again, religious organizations keep people under their power by making them feel guilty and inviting them to feel guilty, because now you still exist as a guilty sinner in the eyes of God, for example. You have to give up being both a saint and a sinner in order to find the truth. And guilt is being a powerful emotion, will in turn activate other wrong emotions. For example, it can give you the idea that in order to atone for what you did in the past, and maybe indeed we did do something that was wrong, we hurt others, that's not right, and so we give gifts to them that we really don't want to give, we spend money that we don't want to spend, merely to make ourselves feel better, but all the time we're still in the trap. So in order to get over guilt altogether, I have to cease to love it and understand why I indulge in it. Then it goes away. Now, there is an alternative to a reaction of guilt if I suddenly think of something wrong that I did in the past. Instead of getting the false pleasure out of feeling guilty, I understand everything we've talked about up to this point. If I do that, I will then have a different reaction when memory says, "You hurt this person 10 years ago, didn't you? Or 20 years ago, or 10 minutes ago." I can see, for example, seeing that guilt is a wrong reaction, then what will I put in its place? In one sense, you're not putting anything in its place. You're simply understanding the whole process. And you're free from what you did 10 minutes ago or 50 years ago. And this is what we're working on, to be free right now, which we are. As we're sitting here right now, and those of you listening to this tape, whether you're aware of it or not, whether you understand it or not, you are free at this exact moment you're hearing this tape. But you have to understand what this means. This is why we're going into these things. Sally brought up the idea of a false feeling of life. If I feel guilty over something I did, and I get an excitement over feeling guilty, which I do, I have now, do you know what I've done wrong? I've done a terrible self-defeating thing to myself. I have made it necessary for me to repeat this offense that I committed yesterday or 10 years ago. I will repeat it in one form or another because I'm still trapped by it, because I don't see through it and I haven't dropped the whole idea of me being a guilty sinner. See, thought is mechanical. It goes over and over and over, like a printing press repeats the same headlines, the same bad news headlines, over and over and over, because it has a mechanical base, doesn't it? It can't do anything but repeat this news. Thought is mechanical. When I understand that I must rise above mechanical thought to another state, which you can call anything you want, call it understanding, call it consciousness, call it new insight, call it anything you want. When I see the necessity for being free of mechanical conditioned thought, the whole thing clears away. Then, if I make a mistake an hour from now, maybe I make a remark that hurts somebody. Why did I make that remark? Do you know why? Because I'm still mechanical, because there's still something in me that gets a false pleasure out of hurting your feelings, and I have to die to this. I have to give it up. I cannot get the false pleasure of hurting you anymore. Which means, you know what it means? It means I have to dig very deeply into myself and not be afraid of what I see. Because if I shy away from it, if I tell lies, if I tell lies, I'll never find out. And then I am trapped by the self-defeating behavior of saying something to you an hour from now and noticing on your face that I hurt your feelings, and then feeling guilty. But at the same time I feel guilty, I get a thrill out of it because I feel that I have power over you. Let me change the trend of thought for a minute, then we'll go on. In order to be free of myself, my old mechanical nature, I have to give up all pleasure of having power over you, over anyone. I have to give up the egotism of thinking that I can control external events. Because if I am a person who can control events, I am still a separate ego apart from that event. I build up this great business, or I in my attractiveness attracted this attractive woman or this handsome man. I did something. I have power to do something. Vanity. And now I'm afraid. I have won you, an attractive woman or a handsome man, now I'm afraid. And I'm going to be jealous. I'm going to be afraid I'm going to lose this powerful business that I built up. Take this as a working thought, and then we'll go on to the open discussion. I have to give up all desire to have power over anything or anyone. The only thing I need to have authority over is myself. And I gain authority over myself by simply understanding what it is all about. Then, when I am one with myself, not in self-contradiction, not saying one thing and feeling another, for example, telling you that I think you're wonderful when I really don't think so. Then when I'm one with myself in a fantastic new way, I have power over the entire world. Because, this is not dramatic, this is a fact. We're not speaking dramatically. Because I am not opposed to anything that happens to me out there. There is no me and an event. There's no me and you. There is just one thing which is not on the level of thought. It's on the level of understanding. I give up all desire to have power over anyone. Right so far?
Right.
When I give that up, I am now nothing. I am no one. Now don't be afraid of this. To be no one is to be free. It's to be free of fear. It is when I try to be someone that I get afraid. Is that tape doing all right, Juan?
Yeah.
Fine. You can let me know when it runs
Yeah,
out.
it's
when it gets
close to 500, but we still got to
All right,
6.
fine. Let me conclude this, then we'll go on. And I'd like both of you to comment on what I'm saying. Now I'll summarize it in other words. When I no longer have a label, an identity of any kind at all, I am a free human being. I am free from everybody and everything because I've become free of myself. I was the only problem on earth I ever had. I was my problem. I was my problem. No longer being a problem to myself, how on earth can you, Sally, be a problem to me? How can you, Juan, be a problem to me? How can my boss be a problem to me when I am a free human being? For one thing, I understand how events happen in the outer world. I understand that it is a confused world, a world of chaos. I may work with neurotic people. I may work with people who are loaded with hostility. But their hostility and their actions toward me can't touch me at all. There's no way they can touch or hurt me. Because first I have freed myself. When I don't have neurosis in me, the neurosis of that person I work with has no way at all of affecting me. It can't touch me. Only when I have something wrong with me can what is wrong with you hurt me, because we're on the same level. And we go out and hurt each other, and we call it friendship or call it a beautiful marriage. And down inside we know it's all a fake, don't we?
Right.
So, summarize, the only responsibility I have on this earth is to be a decent, free, understanding, conscious human being. This is why we're talking right now. This is our aim, to achieve this goal, to be free. Being one with ourselves, we're one with everything else. And then there's no problem. Then whatever happens to me out there is met intelligently instead of with a false sense of self that loves to fight, that loves to stir things up and giving it phony names like for goodness, national goodness, or the betterment of people. All this is a lie. All right. Comment, somebody.
Yeah, on letting go, if I say so, of not being nothing, and not being nobody, I have observed in myself a deep anxiety. I have always thought that I was in control, that I'm responsible for keeping things going, that I can do. If I accomplish a little job or a big one in the past, I still think that I did it, So, exactly what you said there. So I'm afraid to let this thing go. I understand that.
All right.
I see that anxiety down there. And I know that what you're saying is true. I still want to keep that I there, or the image
Yes.
that I can do, that I have control, that I can command these things. I have command of things. But reality shows me every day that I don't.
Right.
Hmm?
Right.
So the more I see this, the more I understand this,
Right.
that it's true.
Yeah.
Of course, it takes a little time, but back and forth, I think we can get to some.
Right. Sally? Yes.
We've got another couple of minutes, 3 or 4 minutes.
Oh, all right. Well, we see in ourselves how we treat people differently. We treat people how it's going to serve our own aims, serve my best interests, for instance. Watch how you address the president of the company or the vice presidents, how you try to be nice because you have your self-interest at heart. You want a better job. And watch how you speak to the cleaners or so forth. Just notice the difference in speaking to the vice president and speaking to the cleaner. The vice president of a company, you think, I'll get a better job, so I'll be nice to him. And the cleaner, it doesn't matter, so you don't bother.
Yes.
It's all our self-interests. This is mainly,
Fine, go ahead.
this is mainly how we live in the world, is to see what we can get for ourselves.
Right.
You got plenty of time. We got another
Oh.
couple of minutes. Go ahead.
Am I supposed to come forward?
Yes, that's fine. That's better. Just so we pick it up nicely. That's fine. Go ahead.
And also, when we want to keep our feeling of ourselves, say we're in the office and somebody's gossiping, a lot of people are gossiping, and we want to be part of the crowd because it's a great feeling of being part of a group. And what we have to do is see that this is self-defeating and stand apart from it and have the strength not to go along with all this mechanicalness.
Yeah.
And so this then helps us not to have our usual feeling of I. We're breaking away.
Right.
And this happens all the time. No matter where you work, you can gain valuable experiences.
One of our people very often ask when they first start into these things, where can I get help? Where's a school of higher thought, or where can I find a source of aid? I'm interested, but I don't know where to go from here. Of course, it is very good to have a group, as we have. But later on, I want to ask another question, so I won't go into this very deeply, but the entire world is a school for the person who wants to work. As Juan just said, as he experienced things, he begins to see that he does not control the external world, that there is no controller and the controlled. Now this is, see how tremendous this is? We're here discussing it, which is fine, but when you go out there, when you go to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, or you're talking to your wife, or you're watching television, doing anything at all, you're being very alert to some lesson you can get out of this. So if you don't have a school, if you don't have a group, work right where you are. Your own mind is a school. Then anything else that you can find with other people, that's just so much extra. Let's cut that off from now on, and then we'll start again. All right. Juan, Sally, suppose someone comes to you and says something like this. I know my life is a confusion. I'm unhappy. I think one day that I have it made, I get something exciting, and it seems as if I've solved my problems. Then the next day, or the next hour for that matter, the whole thing comes back and overwhelms me again. So I'm aware that there's something wrong with my life, something dreadfully wrong, and has been for many years. So I'd like to change my life. I'd like to find something different, something new. But how do I do it? And my main confusion is this. I've read many books, I've gone to many meetings, I've heard lectures. How on earth can I tell whether this is the way out or whether that way is the way out? Because very often one speaker will say one thing and another will say the other, say the opposite. So here I am wanting to find the way out, which I hope exists, but I don't know how to go about it. It's so confusing to even find the truth. How can I find the truth when I have so many things offered to me and I can't distinguish between what is true and what is false? Do you understand my question? How can I help myself when I'm faced with this horrible problem? What can I do?
Well, you experience it for yourself. You don't take what other people say. If one person says to you that salt tastes good and another says it doesn't, how are you going to know unless you taste the salt yourself? That's the only way you can really tell. You have to experiment on changing yourself. You have to get some small aim. If you're a person who is always, say, argumentative, you have to observe this and little by little see that you have been this way all your life, and if you observe it, slowly you will change it. You won't be as mechanical into arguments as you were. And this is the only way you're going to find out is by, what's the word? Self-evidence.
Self-evidence, yeah.
You know, the proof of it. I can't think of the right word. There's another word. This is the only way, Mr. Howard, is by experiencing it
For myself.
for yourself.
But I do this so very often. I just don't know how to judge what is right for me and what isn't right for me. I make so many mistakes, but you know, there's something in me that senses when I make a mistake. And maybe this is helpful, I don't know. Juan, what do you have to say?
Yes, I understand. The sensing that there's something in you that tells you that there's something wrong.
Right.
That's
Agreed.
That's the beginning.
Agreed.
Now, the first thing, just like Sally said there, your main question was, there's so many authorities, there's so many people trying to tell me this and that.
Right.
How can I tell whether this speaker is saying the truth or the other one or the other one? I'm confused.
Right.
Isn't that right?
Right. Very good.
It's very simple. That thing in you that senses something, stick with that. In the first place, a true teacher will not gratify you, will not praise you. He will not tell you that this is easy work.
Go ahead.
It is not easy work. He will not give you comfort. He will not tell you this is going to be something that you're going to accomplish tomorrow or the next day. This takes time. But what you're doing right now, Mr. Howard, is that you're trying to change outer things. But don't start with outer things. Start inside yourself. See that all these problems originate inwardly. You are the cause of these problems. It will be painful to see them. But start with yourself.
But may I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
But what if I feel that I'm not the cause of my problems? If someone betrays me or hurts my feelings, I didn't cause them to hurt my feelings. They hurt me. There may be cruel people. How is that my fault?
You cannot change them, but you can change your own reactions, the way you react. Nobody can hurt you unless you give them the power to hurt you.
It still hurts.
I know it does. But start with that idea that nobody can hurt you unless you give them the power. You must look at it. You must give up that false feeling that everybody mistreats you.
Are you saying that if I understand why I get hurt, that would begin to end it?
Yes, if you start seeing it.
All right.
You will not go away right away. You have to work now. You have to work. Keep on working it. You will not do it the first time, nor the first week, nor the first month, but you just keep working with it. And little by little, you will see that is the right thing to do.
I like the idea that I see, that you mentioned, that I mentioned too, that I do see that there's something very definitely wrong with my life. And I don't I don't want to go on with what you have called self-deception anymore, because I do sense that wherever I have a problem, I'm deceiving myself in one way or another. I may not be able to actually see what the deception is. For example, I get excited going to where there's a large crowd. Say I go to a meeting, and as I said to you before, Sally and Juan, I've been to many meetings, and I see a large crowd, and I get carried away from it, by it, excuse me, I get carried away by it. Because here are all these people in agreement that this is such a wonderful meeting, and the speaker is dynamic and very persuasive, and there are 50,000 people in the auditorium. At the same time, I see all these excited people. I sense that there's self-deception involved. There's mass self-deception. So this is the thing I'm going to work on. Not being carried away just because a million other people believe in it. I think I read somewhere that if a million people believe in a lie, it's still a lie. So that's what I'll work on.
You got it now, Mr. Howard. You're on the right track.
That's right. Okay, fine.
You saw that point clearly.
All right, we'll drop our little working there and go on to something else, something that we've brought up before. And those of you listening to this tape, please give a special attention to what we're going to discuss now, because you will become acquainted with this in many ways as you continue with your own self-work. And if you can catch this one idea and sort of isolate it in order to work on it, you'll find yourself going very, very fast. And it is not easy. Let's get that at the start. It is not easy because all our own habits go against it. But we're going to talk for a little bit. I'll go on a little bit, and then Juan and Sally can contribute to it. The idea of suffering humiliation. And you can, at the start, if you want, give some synonyms for humiliation. When you're humiliated, what are you? You're defeated. You feel bad. You are afraid. When you're humiliated, you are afraid. Try to see this. Remember we said at the beginning that everything is connected? So try to see all these connections that we're making. When you're humiliated, you are also angry. What is humiliation? Look at it for a minute. You've been humiliated. You know what we're talking about. When you're humiliated, it is because a false sense of who you are has been denied. It has been contradicted by a person or by an event. You wanted to succeed at something, anything at all, psychologically, where you have a psychological value. You wanted to be elected to a certain office. You wanted to achieve a business success. You wanted to establish a happy home as a wife or as a husband. You have a goal based on, as Sally said, self-interest. You have an aim. I want this home, I want this success, I want this achievement, I want this popularity. Something happens to deny what you want or to destroy what you have. You have a happy home, what you call a happy home. You have this achievement. You built your business up, or you were elected to office, or you have a good reputation, or whatever it might be. Something happens to take this away from you. Now what do you suffer from? You suffer from humiliation. What on earth has been humiliated? Nothing but a false idea you had about who you were. Nothing else has been hurt but a false idea. If you can see this, nothing but a false identity has been humiliated. But in order to see this, in order to see that the humiliation is really a hoax in itself, you have to stick with it. Now let's see what that means, to stick with it. I have this wonderful home, nice husband, nice wife, let's take as an example, and all of a sudden it disappears, it falls away. My wife leaves me, my husband leaves me, we have a big fight. I fight with my girlfriend, my boyfriend, whatever. I'm scared, I'm humiliated. Now, the average individual, millions of individuals suffer from this thing in one form or another. Not necessarily home, but we're taking that as an example. All the time. So what do these millions of people do when suffering from this humiliation? You know very well what they do. You ask yourself. We talked about self-observation. You ask yourself what you do when you are humiliated. May I tell you? I'll tell you what you do. You get angry. You get hostile. You get depressed. You get aggressive. You fall into self-pity. You fall into self-centeredness. And then you know what else you do that's a great blunder? Among hundreds of other wrong moves. You go out and try to find an ally. When you are in a negative condition and you go out and find an ally, you have now doubled your problem. So you have a problem with your husband or with your boyfriend, and you go out and find some other lady just to agree with you. Of course she's going to agree with you. She's using you. But you, in your desperation for comfort, for someone to agree with you, in order to evade your humiliation instead of looking at it, you'll go out and surround yourself with people on your own level who will now flatter you and tell you how nice you are and how awful the other person is, and now you've made yourself twice as bad as you were before. So you try to escape the problem instead of looking at it. Or if you lose someone, or you lose your popularity with this group or that group, you go out and try to reestablish your popularity in order to continue this fictitious, phony, popular, wonderful self that's been masquerading as you all these years. The point is, when we are humiliated, we have a marvelous opportunity to destroy forever the cause of all humiliation. We are not going to do it as long as we make a wrong reaction when we're humiliated. In other words, we're trying to hang on to a sense of who we are. Look, I lose something of value to me, which has given me excitement, a false sense of self, as Sally said, and as Juan said. Having lost this, I want to try to replace it with something else as fast as I can so I don't feel my pain, so I don't feel the humiliation. I've walked from one prison cell to another cell. But I have called this new cell, because it has a new decoration on it, I've called it happiness, and I've called it freedom. I don't even see that the bars are just as thick in that one as with the other one. All right. Having seen through this much so far, what can I do when I'm humiliated? I can do just one thing, and you two know the answer to this already, but I'll repeat it. When I'm humiliated, there's only one thing on earth I can do that is right. And that is to stick right with it. Don't go screaming about what you did to me, what this awful wife or husband did to me. Don't go blaming anyone. Don't seek a replacement for it. Don't go into self-pity, but to suffer consciously. I am suffering. We're not denying that. I'm in pain. Obviously I'm in pain. But because I want out, I don't want to live this way. I don't want yesterday, tomorrow, to be the same as today and as it was yesterday. I'm going to do something different. And this calls for a lot of courage on my part. I'm going to have to stick right with it to find out what is happening. That is all I'm really doing when I say I'm going to stick with my suffering. I'm going to find out why things are happening the way they are inside of me. Now we'll eventually find out They happen the way they do because I have permitted them to happen, because I was not attentive. Remember we discussed attention to our states? Because I was not observing myself. All because I was very careless, because I have not used my mind as capably as I could have used it. Those of you listening to this tape, and those of us in this room, we are quite capable, whether we realize it or not, of responding differently to the very next humiliation that comes along, or one that we may be suffering from right now. You are quite capable. You don't need to run to anyone else. You can start with yourself right now to say something like this. You can say, I've suffered humiliation, but I'm going to begin to understand it so that I don't mechanically repeat the pattern month after month, year after year. I'm going to look at what's happening. And with the help of a group, which is just fine, I'm going to stick with it until I do understand it. Then I'll eventually understand that the cause of my humiliation was nothing more than wrong ideas. That's all. When these wrong ideas, which you can call it psychological sleep, you can call it mental hypnosis, you can call it spiritual unawareness, call it anything you want, it makes no difference. When I understand that I suffered, that I was humiliated, simply because I had wrong ideas about myself and about life in general. When I see through this, now this is a fact, what I'm going to tell you. Even if you can't accept this as yet, I'm going to give you a fact. Then you can never be humiliated or hurt or pained by anything else in life, by anyone, by any event. There are no exceptions. You can never suffer again. This is what is known as being born again, if you want to use that term, by being a free human being. But you have to use, as Juan pointed out, have to use these daily events to understand them. The world is your classroom. All right, would anyone like to comment?
Well, in my own experience, you're right. You're right.
Maybe you have, excuse me, please. Maybe you have a personal experience
Sure.
that you can...
I have many.
Go ahead. Excuse me.
You're right. There's a gap there between those false ideas we have about ourselves, false ideas, images, whatever you want to call them. Like you say, we always escape, by doing one thing or the other. All right. In my own experience, if I lost my job, I felt humiliated. So now I went around looking and searching for those people that would agree with me. Or in other words, be on my side.
Sympathize with you.
Yeah, sympathize with me. And this is what they would say. This is the people that I chose. The one that said, I don't blame you.
Yes.
You have a right to be angry. I would do the same thing.
Right. Right.
I like those persons.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But if I went out there and somebody said, well, what did you do wrong? Oh, nothing. Nothing. You must have done something wrong. Or else they wouldn't have fired you, or, Well, I wouldn't like that person right there. Right there. He's out.
Right.
Hmm?
Right.
So that was one of my experiences. That I always looked for people that would agree with me and sympathize with me, that I had a right to get angry. Okay? And of course I would never tell the truth, that I was fired because of my inefficiency. No, I wouldn't say that. If I would observe that and seen that I was not doing my job properly, I could have done it, I could have done a better job if I wanted to, but I didn't like doing it, and I figured everybody was picking on me, so I did a bad job. But I see what you're getting at, that we do cause our own things by looking at people.
Sally, did you have a comment?
Oh, well, I think one of the parts about humiliation is what other people will think of us. Here I am, I had a nice family, I had a nice husband, child, and I actually bragged about how well we got along, and this was all, of course, in my fancies. I wanted it to go along well, so I built this false image and bragged about it
Publicly.
publicly
Yes.
to my family, and now I'm humiliated because what will my family think of me? My husband has left me, and what will all these friends think of me to whom I bragged? So now, one way of working is not to start blabbing about it and getting other people's sympathy, or even explaining to anyone, even my family, that what happened. The way to work is not to mention it, to resist the nice feeling it would give you of explaining, go against what you would ordinarily do. And this is a tremendous way to work.
In other words, excuse me, go ahead.
In other words, don't explain what happened. Don't blab about it. Don't get sympathy. Don't mention it. It's happened and that's all there is to it.
That's a very good point. May I just make a comment on it?
Mm-hmm.
2 points, really. One of them, we get a great quote marks around the word pleasure from explaining, getting angry, blaming someone else. We get a great false pleasure from it, don't we?
Right.
So what you're saying is we have to go against our mechanical habitual behavior of blaming others, accusing others, and do the hard thing, which will break mechanicalness, of refusing to blame other people for any mess that we might get into. That just a
Yes.
comment. Excuse me, go ahead.
That is one part of it, but the other part is don't explain to other people, don't waste your energy in trying to get sympathy or having a lot of talk about it. This is just a waste of energy, and this is what you would ordinarily do. You would talk.
Right.
This would be
Right.
It takes in the other points we've been discussing. It gives you a false feeling of I, and you see how everything is connected.
Would you add a thought about energy in that? Because I know you can make the connection.
Yes, and this also, if you talk about it, it gives you this false feeling of energy also. And it gives you this feeling, but you're actually, it's self-defeating, which we talked about. You're wasting valuable energy,
Yeah.
which could be rightly used in the right direction.
Right.
And if you don't mention it to anyone and go against your habitual responses, it's one way of awakening in that particular case.
Yes.
Excuse me, you're right on that, what other people think about. Hmm?
Yes.
When I lost my job, it was my self-worth, I wanted to prove to my family and to my friends that I was,
Mm-hmm.
somebody, the job itself, I could always find another one.
Mm-hmm.
But I was humiliated, and I wanted others to sympathize with me. So you're right on that,
Mm-hmm.
about what others think.
Yes, yes,
Hmm?
yes.
I think a lot of our lives are lived in what other people think.
And who is a slave?
We are.
When I want to impress you, for example, I am your slave. This is one form of slavery we in this group are getting rid of fast. And trace it back. Why do I want to impress you? I want to impress you, I maybe do things for you and so on. Why? To help build my image of being a nice person so that you'll like me. Maybe you'll trade with me. You'll give me things I want. I'll give you what you want. You give me what I want. This is the level of trading which will always end up, if not in open antagonism, to inner antagonism, because people always think that they give much more than they get. People always think that. Excuse me, go ahead, Juan.
Yeah, that's, you owe me something because I treated you nice. So.
Right, now you owe me something.
Right.
Right. If you don't give it to me, I'm going to be mad at you and then go find someone else who'll play the game
Right.
more properly. See? What a wonderful thing it is to not be a slave of other people. And to you people listening to this tape, think about this long after this tape is ended. Think about what it means to be free of other people instead of being tense and hoping that you'll say the right thing, which does not mean you're tactless or anything like that, but simply be relaxed because you're not trying to prove anything. You don't have any images which you're trying to prove. Stop and think of how painful and what tension there is in trying to prove that you're intelligent. Why should you have to try to prove you're intelligent at all? Do you know that you're really intelligent when you don't try to prove it? If you're trying to prove it, you're saying it isn't true. See?
Just you're very nervous too.
Very nervous, yes, because
Right.
you're afraid to say the wrong
Right.
thing.
Mhm.
Let's bring in, and do you have, either of you have anything else before I bring in another?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
praise. You just said something about praise. Why do we want to praise others? When I praise somebody, that's because, like you said, he's keeping my images up. Otherwise, I won't praise him. In
Right.
other words, I praise him because he agrees with me
Right.
and likes me and all that. Otherwise, I wouldn't praise him at all. Correct?
Right, right.
Mhm.
See, it's a game. It's a game. You keep my false image alive, and I'll keep yours alive. But you know, there's no such thing as friendship there, nor love, nor anything else. Because, you see, a false image is greedy, it's treacherous, it has no conscience. A person is so afraid of being nothing that he cannot possibly afford to have a conscience. He will seek everyone possible to affirm his phony images, and he'll betray anyone or drop anyone who ceases to affirm these images.
Mhm.
This is the cause of all human heartache and suffering and sorrow is false images we have about ourselves. There's no friendship and no love until all images are gone. Until when you don't know who you are, which is not frightening.
Mhm.
You see, we think it's frightening. And you know what's frightening to? It's frightening to the egotism. But once you do it, once you begin to die a little by little every day to these, you begin to see that this is the ending of fear, to give up our false ideas about who we are. Then, and only then, can you have a right relationship with anyone else, because you're not trying to get a thing from them. Because they don't have anything to give you. Nothing whatever. Sally, you were going to say something.
No,
Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say, and when we live as other people's slaves, where is our attention?
Good, very good. Yeah. Our attention is on trying to get them to affirm us.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to bring in the topic of suffering in general, and maybe both of you would contribute to this. Do you see that where there is suffering, now get your synonyms in if you want, where there's suffering or heartache or humiliation or depression or anxiety, there must be a fondness for it. You may not believe this, but you listen. Now you have to see it in yourself. Don't take my word for anything. What you're hearing is true, but you find out for yourself. Where there is depression, there is a love for depression. Where there is anxiety, there is a fondness for anxiety. Where there is hostility, there is a liking for it, because hostility gives a false reward. Now, this is very deep, by the way, very deep. How can you, how can anyone give up their fondness for being depressed? Because if I give up my liking for being depressed, it cannot possibly hang on to me. It will go away. I have to give up my love of being persecuted, by the way. Do you know that people who are persecuted love it? If you cease persecuting me, Juan, who am I? I won't know. As long as you persecute me, I am persecuted, therefore I think I exist. See? No, just as a discussion.
Mhm.
Suppose I see this much. Suppose I see that I love my anxiety, my pain. It makes me the center of the world. I'm the center of my own world. The man next door is the center of his, and so our world collides and we fight. Suppose I see this much that I actually see it for the first time that I love my anxiety. But now I also see how it's destroying me. What can I do? What can I do? Anything? How can I proceed?
Well, we can think how it's destroying us, all the destructive things about it, and get it into our mental level to begin with. See all the destructive factors. What is it doing? It's taking us away from ourselves, for one thing. And it is giving us this tremendous false feeling of life again, which we spoke about.
Yes. You're saying, may I comment?
Yes.
You're saying, I think, that we must see self-defeating behavior as self-defeating
Oh,
behavior.
certainly.
That is good.
Right,
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have to write down all the self-defeating behavior that this negative emotion is doing to us.
Write it down. That's a new idea.
Write it down,
yes.
because this helps us to remember. It puts it more in our memory.
Yes, right.
And when we have the same self-defeating behavior, we may think of these things, what it's doing, and this is the beginning of the reversal.
Right.
So I think these are the first steps.
Because
to think rightly towards the...
Right. Yeah, that's right. Because, remember the golden rule, one of the golden rules? No person consciously harms himself.
Mm-hmm.
We hurt ourselves because we know not what we do. We may even take foolish behavior as great behavior. Watch people, observe people when you're in a social occasion, or watch people on television, and you can actually tell that they're performing self-defeating behavior in one way or another. They don't think so. They think they're being very brilliant or very witty. All right, now we turn our attention where it should be as well. We could study other people, that's fine, as long as we're studying ourselves. And say, where might I be giving myself a label, a flattering label, that is actually harmful, but I don't see it as yet. And so you watch yourself, say you narrow it down to watching your dialogue, your conversation with someone else. And you see yourself trying to be clever, for example, or you read a clever remark in a book a couple days ago, and you can hardly wait for the occasion to repeat it because you were impressed by it, and you think they will be impressed by you making this clever remark. And so maybe you make this remark that you think is clever, but you're working on yourself, and you say, you know, the reason I did that is because I wanted to impress other people. It impressed me, so I thought it'd impress him. Now go back farther. Why do I want to impress this other people? See, you can find out that you want certain rewards from them. Also, and most importantly, you want to affirm, which can never be affirmed, this image of being a clever, bouncy, witty person that everybody likes, and it's all a hoax. And when the party's over, you and I know it's a hoax. And the other man's doing the same thing. He's playing the same game. See, do you know what we have to do? And I'll say this especially to you people listening to this tape. This is a basic teaching and a basic thing that we go into in these groups quite a bit. But maybe this is the first time you've heard this. We have to get very, very, very tired of being fakers. We have to be so weary of pretending, of lying, that we don't want to go on with it anymore. And if you reach this point where you're very weary, may I say that there is pretense involved. Get tired of pretending. Nothing but harm can come from self-pretense. It is that simple. Nothing but self-injury can come from self-pretense. By this time, maybe those of you listening to this tape understand why we are reluctant to give up pretense. When I have a role and you tell me I must give up this role, I become very frightened because I don't know what's on the other side of this role. And what most people do when they are told to give up a role, they say, yes, I'll give it up, but then they take on another one. The last thing we'll do is give up a role and have no roles at all. To not be impressive, to not be so-called intelligent, but to be real. This is what we want, to be real human beings. So if we find ourselves unhappy, in self-contradiction, if we get real tired of it, listen, if we get real tired, there's hope for us. Because now we're at the necessary point of seeing our actual condition. Then with that, with this real intelligence of seeing the condition we're in, we can begin to work on a reality. If I'm miserable, that is a fact. It is not a fact that tomorrow I'll be happy when I get a new husband or a new wife or a new girlfriend or a new boyfriend, or when I get richer, or when I get a new home. That is not a fact. That is a falsehood, that I'll be happy tomorrow. Do you know what I'll be tomorrow? I'll be the same thing I am today, unless I change myself. Then, if I am free right now, then tomorrow, according to the clock or calendar, I will be happy and free tomorrow, because my nature is not living in the illusion that tomorrow is going to change anything. The only thing that can be changed is me, my nature, my state. Then I'm free right now, and I'm free tomorrow. So, to be miserable and to be aware of the misery is a wonderful state to be in, because now we can work intelligently on ourselves. Any comments?
Yeah, you brought something out on how we like it, you know. Like my own experience, persecution. You know, I began to see that you're right on that. If I don't have nobody to persecute me, I'm nobody, you know.
Who are you?
Yeah. Okay, now, so I walk around and nobody mistreats me, nobody does anything. So I feel uncomfortable. I don't have nobody to get angry with.
Yes. One may ask, how long do we have on that tape, please? About.
We have another, say, 5 minutes.
Oh, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was going to add something. Go ahead.
So that's it. I began to see that I like my angers. I mean, I want somebody to persecute me so I can say,
Yes.
Now I'll have a reason to get angry, you know.
Right.
But now, since nobody's doing that to me no more, I feel depressed. I mean, there's no either is getting angry, you know.
Mm.
I mean, it's getting persecuted.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, go ahead now.
Do you see what you brought up, Juan? Do you see how this confirms a very basic law, cosmic law, if you want to call it that, that what we are attracts what we get? Do you see this? Mm-hmm. Look. I am loaded with hostility, say. This is what I am. But this hostility gives me a sense of self, a sense of I love it. I love to be hostile. It excites me. Sally said a false feeling life. It excites me. But I have to keep it alive. How am I going to keep this excitement of hatred alive? I have to find people to cause it to happen over and over. So what do? I go out and completely unconscious of what I'm doing, I quarrel with people. I invent reasons for quarreling with them. Why? Because every time I do, I get this feeling again, and I feel who I am. Therefore, if I'm watching myself, I can see that I am the cause of my own troubles. And the only way on earth I can cease to be the cause of my own troubles, my own persecution, is to stop being who I am. In other words, I'm going to really become a changed human being. And when I am changed, my world changes because I am my world. That will be enough for this tape.